On behalf of the Area Agency on Aging in Pasco Pinellas, I welcome you to Aging on the Suncoast. Over the past 2 years, the Area Agency on Aging has been working closely with the Florida Agency for Persons with Disabilities to improve access and information and services for persons with developmental disabilities as they age. This pilot project has also worked to address the needs of family caregivers who are age 60 and over. On today's program, we will learn more about the pilot project. I'm pleased to have with us Jason Martino, the Area Agency on Aging Program Administrator, and Joanne Cox, the coordinator of this pilot project. Welcome to Aging on the Suncoast. Thank you both for joining us today. Jason, start by telling us about the concept of an Aging and Disability Resource Center.
First, thank you for having us back. We appreciate the attention that you give us when we want to talk about this great project. Your question was speaking to the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and I think some history is probably in order to kind of give a little bit of an understanding of that. Area agencies on aging, and that's what we represent, around the nation have taken up a model called Aging Resource Centers. And it's a national model that's launched roughly around 5 or 6 years ago. And the goal is to streamline and access to services for seniors 55 and 60 years and older in the community. To further that Aging and Resource Center, a lot of different area agencies on aging have evolved to become Aging and Disability Resource Centers. And in that evolution of that area agency on aging, they've taken on services to meet the needs of individuals with disabilities of some sort.
That would be a very large change of scope for the area agencies on aging. Have they narrowed it down to specific types of disabilities that they are addressing initially?
Yes, it was a very large scope. It's traditionally the area agencies on aging have just dealt with the public in age 60 and over generally, and so there was a lot of education that needed to be done for those area agencies on aging. And across the state, and it really depends on jurisdiction and demographics and the population that reside in that area agencies on aging's jurisdiction. They pick different disabilities that they think would best serve the public in their area. Across the state, we have some area agencies on aging that are now Aging and Disability Resource Centers that serve developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities. Some area agencies on aging, they serve a population of individuals that deal with severe and persistent mental illness. And some area agencies on aging serve folks with just physical disabilities. And then you have the gamut. Some take it all on. In our area, which is Pinellas and Pasco County, of course, we started out in 2005 serving individuals with severe and persistent mental illness. And due to this grant that we'll talk about a little bit later, we are now reaching out to individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities.
That was an important decision, I would imagine, for the Area Agency on Aging to make, which groups they were going to increase their mission to work with. How did we decide, Joanne, on working with the Agency for Persons with Disabilities and to serve persons with developmental disabilities?
That's a good question. The aging of this population, primarily. The life expectancy of a person with an intellectual disability in the 1930s was 18. Now it's 68, and the general population is 78 or almost 80, and it's believed that within 10 years, persons with intellectual disabilities will have the same life expectancy as the general population. Reasons for that are deinstitutionalization. They're being cared for in community settings and homes. Good medical care have virtually eliminated the secondary problems that went along with these disabilities. The second reason is the aging caregivers, the individuals who have taken on this life responsibility of raising a child with an intellectual disability. They're getting older, and they have not been aware of what services are out there to serve the aging because they put their disabled child's needs above their own. So they're now realizing that this disabled child is going to outlive them, and they need to start looking at what's available. There's also limited service dollars, of course, and a mistrust for many of them of government intervention, because for many of them when that child was born, the options were primarily an institution. So there has been a reluctance to access governments and other services.
So much has changed in
Absolutely.
the last 50 years when
Absolutely.
the decisions that were at hand when the child was born with special needs, and now to have that child have become an adult, which exceeded expectations by statistics that were available at the time of
Absolutely.
birth. Certainly, that's wonderful news that
Absolutely.
the life expectancy has increased. But with that, there are new challenges, and it sounds like this was very timely and a win-win situation for both agencies to work together to increase. Because oftentimes, even if we don't have additional financial resources, knowledge in itself can be a great resource and at limited cost. Going back, Jason, to talking about aging and disability resource centers, I remember our area agency was one of the first 3 in the state to become a disability resource center also. When you talk of the services that are delivered from an ADRC to these special populations, what types of services are those?
I think when we evolved into an ARC and then further into an ADRC back in 2005 and then further took that evolution in 2009 through the 12, we really had to beef up our resources. Primarily we had traditional resources that really catered and served best individuals throughout the lifespan, but not really focused on any type of disability so much, maybe a little bit of physical. So we really needed to stretch our knowledge base really and get in touch and resurrect relationships that we had previously with traditional providers of individuals with disabilities and get them into our database. And having that knowledge of those types of resources, we were able to best serve that individual with either information where they can be empowered enough to go and seek out that service, and or give them access to some sort of a referral process for them by performing an intake with that individual.
Okay. And of course, the 3 of us sitting here, we know intimately what an Aging and Disability Resource Center is, and it goes from everything from a simple call to our senior helpline with information that can be provided to the helpline doing a referral or perhaps conducting intake for some of the programs that we fund, to actually funded services in the home. So there's a broad range, and the services that we provide fit within that range of services. Apparently, it was recognized that area agencies on aging do a pretty good job of delivering services and serve well as an information base in the community. And so the ability to extend that to other populations is hopefully a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
Going back to talking about this specific project, though, tell me when it was started, what the time frame for it was, and how it developed.
We had a pilot project, and it started roughly around December of 2009. And we made an application through the Department of Elder Affairs, our state unit on aging. And we did that in unison with Planning and Service Area 8, which caters to Fort Myers and some of the counties down southwest Florida. And the goal for our agency, like we talked about a little bit earlier, was to evolve to an additional disability, and that's serving individuals with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities. For Planning and Service Area 8, they were still an aging resource center, and that pilot project was to assist them becoming an ADRC. And they took on the mission of serving individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities as well. The pilot project was for 3 years, and it ends this year, actually, towards the end of the year. And Joanne and I have worked very steadily on this project, and we've built up our resources to a point where we're very comfortable, or the public were to call our senior helpline as the first point of entry, that we can give them good information and or provide intake, either on traditional aging services for caregivers and or traditional quasi-aging services for individuals with developmental disabilities, 50 and over.
So, and who specifically is it addressing? We've talked about persons with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities. Is it the whole age spectrum, or are there limits to the age groups there?
The contract, the grant addresses the disabilities that are identified by the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, which is Down syndrome, spina bifida, Prader-Willi syndrome, autism, certain autisms in the spectrum, and cerebral palsy. But as we know, and everyone is aware, anyone can call the helpline to get information on what resources are in the community. But basically, we are targeting the 50 and over with developmental disabilities and their caregivers that are 60 and older. And one of the interesting pieces of this is that there is an awareness that there is a higher probability of Alzheimer's in those with intellectual disabilities. It's not an automatic, but there is a higher percentage. And one of our programs that serves the under 60 is the Alzheimer's Disease Initiative. And we've already seen success in referrals from the Agency for Persons with Disabilities to that program. So that's been one of the pieces of this project that's really been gratifying for us to see come to fruition. And also see that we've got the caregivers that are calling for information on services for themselves.
Yeah, if I may add, the caregiver is the biggest bridge that we know that are going to be seeking out our services. We've learned a lot about caregivers. I think that as an area agency on aging, we knew the issues that caregivers were dealing with when they were taking care of their spouse or their father and such. But one of the biggest differences that we learned is the caregivers that we're now dealing with have been caring for that individual for more than 50, 60 years sometimes. And we knew that burnout could occur within 2 to 3 years for a caregiver caring for their spouse or somebody in their own cohort. But we have great, we're dealing with an entirely different caregiver now. And our goal is to keep that caregiver intact so they can provide that care for that person.
Right. I can see that difference is substantial because generally as we deal with aging caregivers who are seniors and then become caregivers, they can become a caregiver overnight, whereas these are individuals who probably could teach the rest of us a lot about caregiving because they've been doing it for a lifetime. But also as they age, then their needs may change or they may need more resources to continue as a caregiver.
Sure.
So a very important linkage. The project has been well underway for 2 years. Now let's talk some about the accomplishments, what you have done during those first 2 years.
Partnership building is one of the biggest ones that I can think of as well. Having agreements and having philosophical agreements with different agencies that we've long had relationships with before are now enhanced and bolstered in the fact that we're doing a little bit more formal work with them. Some of those are the Center for Independent Living, what is known as a Disability Achievement Center in Pinellas County. Center for Independence in Pasco County, the PARC in Pinellas County, and
UPARC.
UPARC, yes, correct.
Northern Pinellas County. So those have been long-term agencies, experts in their field. So now you've kind of brought all of this knowledge together.
Sure.
And out of that, there has been some resource development. There are some new resources.
We've gotten a great deal of information from the Agency for Persons with Disabilities that we've incorporated into our database. So when we get those calls saying what resources do you have in the community, we can give them good information. Another piece of this has been training. We have done training at these agencies that Jason mentioned. The people from the Agency for Persons with Disabilities have trained our people, and this has been a very effective way to partner so that we increase that awareness both ways.
I would think that at least I can speak on behalf of our agency, that they would welcome this opportunity to gain new knowledge. And you've brought in the experts to provide that training to them so they can, when we take on a new project, we want to be best prepared to provide good, accurate information. And I would assume those are ongoing collaborations that you have with the organizations that you have mentioned, so that there's a back and forth as we encounter some challenges.
Yeah, like I was saying before, we've had long-standing relationships with these types of organizations, and we've enhanced them now. Cross-training, as Joanne said, is essential for us to be able to do our job effectively. Sensitivity training is another one that we pride ourselves on. We were able to cross-train with the local SIL in Pinellas County, and we thought that was great. There was a lot of things that we took from that training that we were able to express to our senior helpline staff, and they were able to understand the needs a little bit better of a new segment of the population that's now seeking out our services.
Okay. We're going to take a break now, but when we come back, I'd like to gain an understanding of both, some of what you've shared with the rest of the state as a result of what you have learned these first 2 years, and then also an idea of some of the outcomes that will continue as this project is drawing to a close. So we'll be back with our audience after this short break.
Elder abuse is always devastating, but it may not always be obvious. Isolation, coercion, and the withholding of medication are only a few of the more subtle forms of elder abuse that occur every day to thousands of our senior citizens. Please join me in the fight to end elder abuse. Our elders deserve better. Visit the website of the National Center on Elder Abuse. It's time to speak up.
During the first segment of our show, Jason Martino and Joanne Cox of the Area Agency on Aging have shared information with us about their work to increase the availability of information for persons with developmental disabilities and their caregivers. We are interested to learn more about the outcomes of this project, and I'm glad to have you back during this segment to share some additional information. First, though, let me mention to the audience that we will be running the Senior Helpline telephone number throughout the program, and that would be the place to call if they have any questions about what we're discussing today, or if there are people in the audience who are caring for someone who has a developmental disability or concerned about a caregiver of a person with a developmental disability. Our Senior Helpline is positioned to help them now as a result of your project. We were talking some about the outcomes of the project, and I know one is the original intent was for us as an area agency on aging to take on service to another disabled population, but some areas of the state hadn't yet done that. Are you sharing this knowledge with other areas of the state so that they can make that transition to become an aging and disability resource center?
Yes, we have. We've been invited to do a training using a curriculum that it was developed to assist in this project in converting program and service areas that were just an aging resource center to become an aging and disability resource center. We provided training to the Tallahassee area agency. We were invited to come to Tampa to assist that area agency in their conversion. We did Pensacola back in December, and we're scheduled to go to Gainesville next month to present a day-long training for that area agency so that they can meet the requirements to becoming an aging and disability resource center. So we've been really gratified that people have invited us to assist them in that conversion. We have also presented at some statewide conferences as the awareness of this has been elevated at the state level. We presented at the Florida Council on Aging conference last summer. The ARC statewide conference invited me to come in last fall, and the Agency for Persons with Disabilities statewide conference invited us to present at their conference back in the fall. So we've been very, very busy in helping others to reach this level of awareness. And as we talked earlier, the ongoing cross-training with our local partners will continue.
Okay. That cross-training has been effective for our staff and the staffs of the Agency for Persons with Disabilities?
It really has. We've gotten great feedback from that cross-training. Yeah. And I think it's a reciprocal education that's going on. We're learning a lot about the nuances of the services that traditional developmental disability providers provide, and then also they're learning about the idiosyncrasies of our services. And that's important for us to make good, meaningful referrals back and forth when appropriate.
So often for professionals, I used to say to my daughter, you're only as good as your Rolodex, you know, which is not the term now. I'm sure it's your BlackBerry or whatever tool you use. But, you know, when you know that there are other trusted partners in the community that you can refer to, you have some knowledge of their programs so that you know that there is a resource out there. And that sounds like, you know, that's what you've been doing is really beefing up that Rolodex with the knowledge that stands behind it. And it's interesting to hear that other areas of the state are not only recognizing the need, which from the statistics, the demographics that you're sharing with us obviously is there and will be increasing, but you've given them some tools with which to address it. So that's all good news.
We're proud to think that we were a part of their formal transition. Now 11 of the 11 area agencies on aging are now aging and disability resource centers across the state. So we'd like to think that we were good partners in that transition. We know that there was much more work on their end that they need to do, but we think that this is one piece that was a big benefit to them.
And I think, too, that there's an awareness nationally that the aging of the developmental disability population makes sense for that group and those resources to partner with the aging population. So we're seeing nationally this partnership developing.
Right. We've talked about increasing our database, and again, that's probably a term that is kind of like Rolodex. What does that mean to the consumer out there who perhaps has, is a caregiver for a person with a developmental disability? What can they get from calling our senior helpline now?
Well, I guess the best way for me to articulate that is maybe create a scenario of some sort. We speak to the senior helpline and using the 1-800-96-ELDER number as your first point of entry. And for example, if a caregiver caring for an individual with a developmental disability wants to learn a little bit more about estate planning or making advanced directives for themselves and for their loved one in the event that they pass and that individual with a developmental disability is going to live on. We have legal resources in our senior helpline, and so one of our operators will, of course, give that person information and or maybe perform an intake for them so they can get that legal assistance to help them with that those advanced directives or that estate planning or any type of legal issue that may come around. Legal is one small example, I believe, of what we can offer.
But that's a good example because, as we mentioned earlier, individuals that were raising these disabled children never realized that they were going to the child would outlive them as would in a traditional family. So this is a real essential piece for many people, is to plan financially for the inevitability of that individual outliving them as in a typical family setting.
Right.
And it's new for us as well. Typically, and when we were an aging and resource center, we had a lot of elder law specific types of legal organizations in our database, if you will. And now we've come to understand that dealing with the legalities of developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities, it's highly specialized, and not every type of attorney is able to do that. So Joanne and I had to make sure that we got quality legal organizations in there that provide that type of service.
Yeah.
So it would be reasonable for a person to call up and say, I really need specialized legal help, and the senior helpline would have some resources to give to them.
They would.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And the other side of that is a law firm that wants to be in our database could call and say, send me the information I need to be a part of this and be in. It's a statewide refer. It's a computer-based system, and that would be helpful also.
Share with me some of the other projects or services that we offer as an area agency on aging that have been of particular interest to those who, both professionals and individuals who are working with persons with developmental disabilities.
I could be here all day talking about all the services that we have here. We're so proud of the services and also the service providers that we contract and we have that we work with very closely. There's a couple different services that we know have been real effective with this new population that we've been dealing with. SHINE, Serving Health Insurance Needs of the Elderly, has been one of our probably top sought after resources out there, helping those people with Medicare types of questionings.
And that service can help a person of any age who has Medicare. So, and I would assume many of the individuals who have developmental disabilities and their caregivers have Medicare. So they can unravel some of that system for them.
Sure.
Okay.
The Emergency Home Energy Assistance for the Elderly program is what we call EHEAP is our acronym. Serves folks that are 60 and over that have a crisis with some sort of a utility, a power bill mainly, and it will help pay that bill and allow that person to make good decisions about where their money is going. Older Americans Act programs is a big one. We have congregate dining and home delivered meals that can serve this population, and some of which don't have a wait list for services. There's a litany of them out there. Relative caregivers is another one. We have a population of grandparents that are raising their grandchildren, or relative caregivers that are raising grandchildren, and that's a population that also serves the public very well.
Okay. You mentioned earlier also the Alzheimer's Disease Initiative Program, which is able to serve individuals 18 and over who have Alzheimer's disease. And another financial assistance program is the SNAP assistance that is provided.
Exactly.
Joanne, tell us a bit about that.
That's a really an interesting, innovative project that we've been working with. It's telephone application for food assistance. Now, the Department of Children and Families determines the eligibility, but our operators take the information from an over 60 individual who may qualify for this, formerly known as food stamps. But that's been a real help for people who are not able to get to a service center to apply or to navigate the online application themselves. But we've served over 800 individuals in applying for food stamps since this project began.
And I know as an area agency we have found people who need financial assistance now have never needed it before.
Exactly.
So to have something like the Emergency Home Energy Assistance, which can help with heating and cooling bills, or the SNAP program, that's very important to anyone who's listening over the age of 60, but certainly to caregivers and those working with individuals with developmental disabilities. Share with me, you mentioned the nutrition programs, home delivered meals and congregate dining. Can those serve both the caregiver who's over the age of 60 and perhaps their child that is under the age of 60?
Correct. Both of those programs can serve individuals with disabilities and or the caregiver of that. Back when they created those programs in 1965 and when they created the Older Americans Act, that was a line in there that had a lot of push. And so there's a lot of different mechanisms within the Older Americans Act where we can serve individuals with disabilities, yes.
Okay. We've certainly mentioned a broad array of programs that are of interest to anyone over the age of 60 and certainly to those with persons with disabilities and their caregivers. And for any additional information on these programs, they would call the Senior Helpline?
Correct.
Okay, and we have run that telephone number throughout the program. But I have to congratulate both of you. You've took on quite a large project here. It sounds like you gathered together the right partners. You've made a lot of headway, and it looks like you've created some valuable outcomes here that will last well beyond the end of the project. So congratulations to you, and thank you for joining us today. And our audience, I hope you have found this to be helpful information. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm William Mapother. I play Ethan Rahm on the TV show Lost. Let me tell you about a truly lost population. Every single day, thousands of our elderly citizens are subjected to abuse, emotional, financial, physical. Worse, the majority of people who commit these acts are those closest to the victim. Please join me in the fight to end elder abuse. It's time to speak up. Our elders deserve better.
Like any superhero, she looks like an ordinary citizen most of the time, but she's the scam gram, standing up for millions of Medicare recipients who are vulnerable simply because they don't know how important it is to protect their Medicare numbers, detect Medicare fraud, and report suspicious charges. The scam gram works at her local SMP. Every state has one, and they're all dedicated to helping you protect, detect, and report healthcare fraud. Call your local SMP at 877-808-2468.
Elder abuse is always devastating, but it may not always be obvious. Isolation, coercion, and the withholding of medication are only a few of the more subtle forms of elder abuse that occur every day to thousands of our senior citizens. Please join me in the fight to end elder abuse. Our elders deserve better. Visit the website of the National Center on Elder Abuse. It's time to speak up.